Welcome to The Connector, where we connect North Carolina to ideas and North Carolinians to each other. This podcast series is from the Institute for Emerging Issues at North Carolina State University. And now to the conversation.
Welcome to The Connector. I'm your host, Sarah Hall, Director of the Institute for Emerging Issues at NC State University. We are fresh off the heels of the 2025 Emerging Issues Forum, Future Forward Energy, and we're thrilled to have with us NC State's own Chuck Flink, Director of the Peter A. Pappas Real Estate Development Program with the College of Design, as one of our many speakers at this year's forum. Welcome, Chuck.
It's an honor to be with you today, Sarah, and I really enjoyed the forum. I thought it was one of the better ones that I've attended. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being with us. And, your presentation really was, we were just talking right before the show. One of the evaluations that came in said it was one of the best they've seen in 20 plus years. So congratulations on a job well done.
That's nice.
So, let's start just a little bit more about you. You're an award-winning author, but your journey started here at NC State, and you are here right now at NC State. So just say a little bit about your journey and how you've ended where you are right now.
Well, I owe so much to NC State. I got my undergraduate degree in 1982, and I understood the value of it when I was graduating. And I stayed connected to the university as a volunteer, even started the first scholarship fund, helped to start it in landscape architecture with $25 that I didn't have at the time. Years go by. I started a business, Greenways Incorporated, in 1986, which is 4 years after I graduated. So I was really young when I started that business. And that business just took off. It took me around the country, around the world. And I sort of got a little bit separated from NC State, being busy businessman. And then I remember being named a distinguished alumnus for the College of Design. This is probably back in 2005. And I called the dean, who I knew really well at the time, Marvin Malika, and I said, Marvin, I think a mistake's been made. I haven't given any money to the university, thinking that these things
but not yet.
Pay to play. Exactly. And, he set me straight. No, this is, and the faculty really think highly of what you've been doing. And I had no idea that anybody was following what I was doing. And anyway, he then, after earning the Distinguished Alumnus Award, he said, would you serve on the Board of Visitors? And NC State was in turmoil. We lost our chancellor, we lost our provost, we lost the chair of our Board of Trustees. It was a tough time at NC State. And I was appointed as the interim, by the interim Chancellor Woodward. And then we introduced Randy Woodson. And I was on the Board of Visitors and eventually became the chair of that board and really became, super, super involved. And then I got approached by the department chair saying, we'd love for you to come in and teach. That was a very intimidating thing for me because I didn't really think I was going to be a good teacher. I didn't feel like I had the chops to stand in front of students and talk about things. And but we sort of got going in that direction. Then he says to me, hey, I think you need a master's degree. And I'm like, I need a master's degree like I need another hole in my head, kind of thing. But he talked me into it. And the funny result of that master's degree, which I was reluctant to do, was the thesis of that turned into a book that I got published. So when you talk about being an award-winning author, that was the third book that I had written and one I'm very proud of. So my journey has been very interesting, and I feel still to this day like I owe so much to NC State. So I'm happy to be back involved with the university and heading up this brand new program, the Pappas program.
So tell us about the program and it's really this innovative new program. And so tell us about how that got started and what the goal of the program is.
Yeah, so just to set the stage a little bit, I've known Mark Hoverstone, the dean of the College of Design, for a long time. I was doing work in Las Vegas for the city of Las Vegas on trails and parks and recreation and open space conservation when Mark was there starting up the architecture and landscape architecture at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Mark had come out of the private sector. He'd worked with the Howard Hughes Corporation doing one of Las Vegas's most celebrated developments, Summerlin. And I knew about that project, and he invited me to come over to UNLV and be a guest speaker for their students. That's when I first met him. Years later, I'm on the selection committee for the new dean of the College of Design, and Mark is one of the finalists. And then he became our dean. So Mark and I had a long relationship together. And so when the real estate development community and the sort of designer community approached Chancellor Woodson, this is probably around 2017, 2018, with the notion that NC State needed to teach real estate development, it was sort of first kicked over to Poole College of Management that studied it for a little bit. But the community that brought this to the chancellor said, we want this to be in the College of Design. And so it was, Mark was contacted by the chancellor and said, will you start this up? He was sort of looking internally and realizing there was nobody really inside the university or in the college that had any background in real estate development. He knew about our relationship because we talked a lot when he was newly hired as the dean. And he called me and he said, I know that, you're in transition with your career. Would you be willing to be a consultant to me on this program? And I said, yes, I'd be glad to work with you. And so I came on board in 2019. And at the close of 2019, I wrote this white paper that was very heavily influenced by Mark, as well as by the provost and the chancellor. I mean, I was getting a lot of guidance on, if NC State is going to start a real estate development education program, what should it be? And so I kind of wrote this white paper, and it went over really well. And by March of 2020, which is an interesting time frame,
Yes.
Start of the pandemic, Mark comes to me and he says, I want to name you the director of this program. And I'm like, director of what program? There is no program. We have a white paper. But that's how we sort of got started. And really for the first few years of that, it was Mark and myself kind of just trying to put things together. I went ahead and started a class with Imran Akil, who had worked in real estate, the real estate office at NC State, is an architect. He's an incredibly bright mind. I have so much respect for Imran, and together we launched the first class. And it was just, I remember talking to Chancellor Woodson one day about this. He goes, Chuck, so many people are going to return your call. And I feel like that's my greatest asset, is that I could pick up the phone and call a lot of people in the business, and people would take the call, they return the call, and then I would try to convince them to come over and help us, launch this brand new endeavor. We just started partnering with, the business community, the real estate community, with other like-minded organizations. And we kind of spun this up to the point where we really had something going. And I give Mark a lot of credit. I mean, the two of us really kind of hatched this together. And we believe that the program should focus in a unique way, a different way from the way that real estate programs in universities are built. A lot of them are MBA programs, heavily focused on accounting and finance and capital markets and the capital stack and all that, which is great. That's all necessary. But almost nobody in the education industry was talking about design, placemaking, community building, which, if you talk to developers, I mean, that's the lion's share of what they feel like they do as a real estate developer. And that was a great opportunity for NC State. I mean, we're a land grant institution, we're a STEM, heavy university, and that it really, we could build that kind of a program, using the colleges that we already have and the educational offerings that we already have. And that's how we got it launched, was, being true to our DNA as a land grant, and thinking about a focus on how communities are built and how we build them in sustainable and resilient ways. So that's as short as I can sort of tell that story, because there's a lot more complexity to it, but that's how we got launched.
Yeah, and Chuck, so I love that your approach to this program, and you and I both have a friend in common. So former chair of II's National Advisory Board, Jack Cecil, who's still our emeritus member of our board, who is in real estate development, but his organization, Biltmore Farms LLC, is all about sort of community and economic development, that's sort of built on those tenets of sustainable community development. And so I know you've also worked closely with him on some projects, but love that ethos of how you've sort of built that program on that foundation. Can you say a little bit more about the different sort of buckets of your program, the student-based buckets, and also some of these new initiatives around placemaking that you've recently launched, and where's it going?
Absolutely. So I think of us as a three-legged stool with equal weight in each of the legs. We're an academic program. We're trying to connect with students of various types. I mean, we're looking at our undergraduates. We're launching a graduate student program. We're talking to people who are already working in the professions. So we have a very strong academic program, which I'll get back to in just a second. Our second leg is sponsored research, where we're doing some really cool, innovative work in that space, and I'll talk more about that. And then the third leg is engagement, where we're trying to be a thought leader on real estate here in North Carolina. And I'll just say most of our focus is going to be in North Carolina. Yes, we'll study national, international models, and we may have some involvement, but we're a land grant institution with responsibilities to 100 counties in North Carolina. That's the way we view ourselves. So most of it is going to be, our focus is going to be in North Carolina. So back to our academic model, which I had to get a lot of schooling on because I don't come from the academy. So I come from the private sector. I operated a private business for, most of my career, my 40-year career is in private practice, and was in the business of conservation. And so I've had exposure to real estate. I know how it works from that standpoint. And what I had to do was to understand how the academy worked. And I give a lot of credit to Dean Hoverston and Provost Arden and Chancellor Woodson for helping me to understand how we might set this up in a way that represented the future of education, of higher education at a land grant institution. And so in that regard, we're building certificate programs. And we'll have 3 different certificates that we launch, one in the College of Design, one in association with the College of Engineering, and the third with our College of Natural Resources. Those will be 12 credit hour certificates apiece. We've launched the first one in design. We're working on the other 2. We hope to have all of that put together by, say, fiscal year 2028, 2029. And we'd like to submit the program as a whole to the system office for review and approval as a master in real estate development. So it's built on these certificates. It'd be 36 credit hours, which would make it eligible for a master's degree. And it represents an academic program that's very flexible. I like to say we're very student centric. We teach a pragmatic, practical approach to how real estate development takes place. Okay, so that's our academic model. Our sponsored research I'm really excited about because we are being approached by industry. We're working with the state of North Carolina on a couple of projects. We're doing projects with the private sector like Biltmore Farms LLC. The area of research that we're into is sustainable, resilient development that looks into the future and figures out some of these really difficult challenges that North Carolina faces in terms of growing. For example, with Fujifilm Biotechnologies, they asked us to come in and help them define the elements of what makes a campus sustainable, a corporate campus sustainable. And their whole tagline was, we want to be the most sustainable biopharma campus in the world. So we've been working with them for several years to help, as a university, to help them accomplish their goals in that regard, whether that is energy in terms of how their plant is operated. They're a water intensive business. So how do we look at the issue of water from a lot of different perspectives? Their site can be an ecological sort of laboratory of success. So we've looked at that with them. We're working with the Department of Commerce on a program called CORE, which is creating outdoor recreation economies. And this would be for some of our rural communities that are struggling in the transition from what their industries might have been, say textiles or any other sort of industry, to what their economies can be going forward and how they take advantage of their location and their geography and geology to become more economically successful. To our work with Jack Cecil and Biltmore Farms LLC. They had a 1,000-acre piece of land. We took a look at that, and we provided some ideation work for them because we're not a consulting firm. We're an academic institution, but we're able to take students and faculty that can focus on a particular problem and come up with some ideas that business and industry might be interested in. So working with Jack and his team at Biltmore Farms, we came up with some ideas for how they might take this piece of land and promote a type of development that would help with employment in the future and also address issues of sustainability and context, within the Asheville community. So those are some examples of our sponsored research. And then the final leg on engagement, we're trying to be a thought leader. So we've launched something called Placemaking by Design, in which we're talking about that kind of stuff at NC State, very interesting issues and topics. And we're also just partnering with Urban Land Institute and different organizations in North Carolina to talk about the future of real estate development. So that's a comprehensive look at our program.
It's a lot in a very short amount of time. And so just kudos to you and your very small team for all that you've accomplished so far. And Chuck, as I'm listening to you, it's very clear how interdisciplinary the work that you do is. And of course, NC State is known for our excellence in interdisciplinary partnerships and work. So before we sort of close, I do want to transition to how you and I connected. And so, well, obviously you've been coming to the Emerging Issues Forum for years. I was actually looking back at photos of when the Hunt Library was built, and there you were. So we've known each other for a long time, but most recently connected intentionally around this idea of North Carolina 2050,
Right.
And how North Carolina is going to change. It was actually the topic and focus of your presentation at the Emerging Issues Forum just last week. And as North Carolina has been embarking on the emerging issue of infrastructure and how we're going to prepare for the growth expected, all of the people moving to North Carolina by 2050, but also the innovation in industry, right? The needs, you mentioned Fujifilm, Diasynth, and Holly Springs, how it's water intensive and it's energy intensive. I was just there a couple of weeks ago with a colleague, and we could see the, Sharon Harris nuclear site, right from one of their windows. But and that's right aligned with the work that you're doing and the visioning that you're doing, and how do we build that growth and how do we conserve what we can, because we still want to make North Carolina a beautiful, healthy, environment. And so I'm curious just what your thoughts are about what we need to be focusing on right now if we are going to be prepared for the future.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would just say right now, I'm just being factual. I don't really think we are well prepared for the future. But I believe in North Carolina. I believe in its history and its legacy. And I think it's a state that is unique in that there's a can-do attitude. We're the think and do university. And I believe that we can come together. It's going to take everybody in the state working in partnership and in tandem. And I like the reference to the Research Triangle Park, because there's a legacy that we have of when that happened, when everybody didn't become partisan and they all began working together. And I think that's a challenge going forward. And I do believe it has to be a public-private sector, because some of these problems that we face are not going to be solved by one or the other, but they can be solved together. And I think that's the real promise of North Carolina, is the ability for all of us to work together and take these challenges on and solve them. And that's what I'm very optimistic about.
Yeah. Well, okay. So one of my favorite questions to ask our guests is, what do you think is the next big issue, particularly around housing, real estate development, you pick, that you think North Carolinians across sectors, different regions and perspectives are going to really rally around and work on together to try to accomplish over the next?
I really think housing is probably the big challenge that we've got. I mean, there's a lot of them. We could go off into a lot of rabbit holes, but I think housing is a great opportunity for us. And there's a new book out that I'm sure a lot of your viewers have read or heard of, called Abundance. And it really is good, because it begins to define, where we kind of got off track in this country, not just in North Carolina, but So there are ways in which we can solve housing, and it's going to take a really big effort to do that. We probably have to really rethink how housing is delivered and how it enters the marketplace, and how we make sure that everyone has access to quality housing that wants it, and it can be affordable. Because right now, the way it's going, we're falling further and further behind. And it's not me saying that; it's the North Carolina Chamber of Commerce saying that. It's other agencies that are really studying this. But I feel like we can come together and address the housing crisis that we're already in immediately. And I'm glad that it's one of your subjects, for a future emerging issues forum. And hopefully, by the time that forum occurs, there will be some really good solutions on how we conquer that. So that'll be my one big issue for today.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're right. I think you will be, and definitely hope to have you back at that forum and the one on water, because you can't have housing if we don't have water and sewer, right?
Absolutely.
And so everything is all connected when we're talking about our state's infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Well, Chuck, any parting thoughts before we call
Well,
it a
thank you
show?
so much, Sarah. It's been great. Obviously, knowing you and partnering with you, and being a part of the forum. And I do look forward to future forums and ways in which we all work together to tackle some of these really challenging issues that North Carolina is facing. So thank you for the opportunity to come on today with you.
Great, wonderful. Well, once again, I want to thank our guest, Chuck Flink, with the Peter A. Pappas Real Estate Program here at NC State. To learn more about his program, visit communitygrowthnc.ncsu.edu. So until next time, let's all stay connected.
This has been a presentation from the Institute for Emerging Issues at North Carolina State University. To learn more, please visit us at emergingissues.org.